The skies over Los Angeles glowed an eerie red, a color that felt unnatural, as if the earth itself was signaling its distress. Thick smoke billowed through the city, reducing once familiar landmarks to shadowy silhouettes. The wildfire season had returned to California, but this year it brought a wrath that defied expectations. Helicopters roared overhead, their cameras capturing apocalyptic scenes of scorched earth, and emergency broadcasts interrupted lives with dire warnings of evacuation. Amid the chaos, a single tweet shifted the narrative from despair to curiosity. Wildfires are no longer just nature's doing. Look closer. Patterns don't lie, Elon Musk posted. The billionaire tech visionary had often been a figure of intrigue, but this cryptic message landed with an urgency that no one could ignore. For days, the fires dominated news cycles, not just for the destruction they wrought but for the growing debate over Musk's words. What patterns was he referring to? What hidden forces could be fueling the infernos beyond the usual culprits of climate change and human negligence? Newsrooms scrambled to investigate, while social media teemed with speculation. Some believed Musk was alluding to new innovations, perhaps Tesla's solar technology, as a potential solution. Others speculated about data collected by SpaceX's satellites, claiming Musk's fleet had detected anomalies in fire-prone regions. Conspiracy theorists, ever watchful for hidden agendas, suggested something darker, a hidden factor no one dared name. As the fires consumed homes and forests, leaving tens of thousands displaced, a growing movement demanded answers. Musk's refusal to elaborate on his tweet only added fuel to the speculative fire, as if he were daring the world to uncover the truth for itself. In the days that followed Musk's tweet, speculation turned into investigation. A few independent researchers and data analysts began scouring public information, hunting for the patterns Musk hinted at. Among them was a self-proclaimed data analyst, an anonymous user on Reddit who pieced together wildfire ignition points and their proximity to telecommunications infrastructure. Their findings were unsettling. A significant number of fires appeared to originate near cell towers and data centers. Coincidence? One Reddit thread questioned. Maybe. But the overlap is too consistent to ignore. The theory was met with skepticism. Climate scientists and firefighters dismissed it as the overreach of an armchair investigator. Correlation isn't causation, one expert cautioned during a televised debate. But others weren't so quick to dismiss the idea. Musk's tweet loomed large in public consciousness, and for many, it felt like a puzzle waiting to be solved. Meanwhile, the fires raged on. In Thousand Oaks, residents fled with whatever they could carry, the acrid smell of burning wood clinging to their clothes. Families huddled in gymnasiums and community centers, scrolling through their phones for updates, on the fires, on Musk's tweet, on the theories growing wilder by the minute. The state burned as the debate smoldered. Then came the first whistleblower. Her identity was concealed for her safety. In a televised interview with a prominent journalist, her voice was distorted, her face hidden in shadows. She was a former engineer for a leading telecommunications company, and her revelations sent shockwaves through the nation. Our systems are overloaded, she explained, detailing how cell towers in fire-prone areas were operating far beyond their intended capacity. Cooling systems meant to regulate heat are outdated, and maintenance budgets have been slashed year after year. Combine that with extreme heat and dry vegetation, and you've got a disaster waiting to happen. The whistleblower provided documents, maintenance logs, and photographs, evidence that painted a damning picture. One document described a cell tower in Ventura County where technicians had flagged dangerously high temperatures days before a nearby fire ignited. The issue was marked as low priority due to cost-cutting measures. The public reaction was immediate. Social media erupted with outrage. Hashtags like #TelecomFires and #AccountabilityNow trended, as users shared photos of cell towers surrounded by overgrown vegetation. Protesters gathered outside corporate headquarters in San Francisco and Los Angeles, holding signs that read, "Profit over people" and "Fix it now." Musk's cryptic words began to take on new meaning. Though he had remained silent since his tweet, many now saw him as a prescient figure, someone who had sounded the alarm before anyone else. Theories about his access to SpaceX satellite data resurfaced, with proponents claiming he must have seen something, perhaps ignition points, heat signatures, or unusual electromagnetic activity. But skeptics were quick to push back. If Musk knows something, why isn't he sharing it? One journalist demanded during a news segment. This is no time for cryptic messages. As the debate raged, another whistleblower stepped forward. This time, it was a field technician who had worked on cell towers across California. Speaking anonymously, they corroborated the first whistleblower's claims, adding first-hand accounts of neglected safety protocols. "We reported issues all the time, cooling failures, vegetation growing too close to towers," the technician said. But nothing ever got prioritized unless it was critical to the network's functionality. Safety didn't seem to matter. By now, the wildfire crisis had evolved into a full-blown scandal. Investigative journalists pored over the whistleblower's evidence, uncovering more alarming patterns. In Northern California, 3 fires had started within a mile of cell towers with documented maintenance issues. Internal emails leaked to the press revealed executives dismissing safety upgrades due to budget constraints. The telecommunications companies responded with denials. "Our infrastructure meets all regulatory requirements," a spokesperson for one major provider insisted during a press conference. "There is no evidence linking our equipment to these wildfires." But the denials did little to quell public anger. Lawmakers in Sacramento convened emergency sessions to address the growing crisis. Environmental groups seized the moment, pushing for stricter regulations on infrastructure in fire-prone areas. Proposals ranged from mandatory vegetation clearance around cell towers to regular inspections of cooling systems. Activists demanded independent audits, arguing that self-regulation had failed. The wildfire crisis reached Capitol Hill, where the House Energy and Commerce Committee announced a federal inquiry into the telecommunications industry's potential role in wildfire ignition. Executives from major providers were summoned to testify in a series of hearings broadcast live to millions of viewers. The public watched with rapt attention as lawmakers grilled these corporate leaders, demanding accountability for the alleged negligence. One particularly tense exchange involved a congresswoman from California confronting the CEO of a leading telecom company. "You knew your towers were overheating. You knew they were surrounded by flammable vegetation. And you did nothing. How do you justify that?" she asked, her voice rising with indignation. The CEO deflected, blaming regulatory gaps and extreme environmental conditions. "We operate within the guidelines set by federal and state authorities," he responded. "If those guidelines need to change, we're open to working with lawmakers." The response only fueled public outrage. Protesters outside the Capitol chanted, "Lives over profits," and social media erupted with demands for stricter oversight. Celebrities joined the fray, sharing personal stories of loss and amplifying the voices of displaced families. The wildfire crisis reached Capitol Hill, where the House Energy and Commerce Committee announced a federal inquiry into the telecommunications industry's potential role in wildfire ignition. Executives from major providers were summoned to testify in a series of hearings broadcast live to millions of viewers. The public watched with rapt attention as lawmakers grilled these corporate leaders, demanding accountability for the alleged negligence. One particularly tense exchange involved a congresswoman from California confronting the CEO of a leading telecom company. "You knew your towers were overheating. You knew they were surrounded by flammable vegetation. And you did nothing. How do you justify that?" she asked, her voice rising with indignation. The CEO deflected, blaming regulatory gaps and extreme environmental conditions. "We operate within the guidelines set by federal and state authorities," he responded. "If those guidelines need to change, we're open to working with lawmakers." The response only fueled public outrage. Protesters outside the Capitol chanted, "Lives over profits," and social media erupted with demands for stricter oversight. Celebrities joined the fray, sharing personal stories of loss and amplifying the voices of displaced families. As the media frenzy intensified, so did the pressure on Elon Musk to comment. His silence since the initial tweet had been interpreted in many ways: strategic, indifferent, or perhaps a sign he was working behind the scenes. Then, in a surprise move, Musk broke his silence with a series of tweets. Proud of the whistleblowers and independent researchers for shining a light on this issue, he wrote. Innovation isn't just about building new systems, it's about maintaining the ones we already have. He went on to announce that Tesla engineers were developing a prototype for a solar-powered, fire-resistant communication tower. The design would feature advanced cooling systems, flame-retardant materials, and automated sensors capable of detecting and suppressing nearby fires. "We need infrastructure that works with the environment, not against it," Musk tweeted. The announcement sparked a wave of interest and skepticism. Was Musk genuinely trying to solve the problem, or was this another publicity stunt? Regardless, his proposal became a focal point in the growing movement for accountability and innovation. The ripple effects of the wildfire revelations extended far beyond California. Other states with wildfire-prone areas, like Oregon and Washington, began scrutinizing their own infrastructure. Calls for national standards on telecommunications safety grew louder, with environmental groups and lawmakers pushing for comprehensive reform. In Sacramento, the Wildfire Infrastructure Accountability Act was introduced, a sweeping piece of legislation aimed at preventing future disasters. The bill included mandatory vegetation clearance around cell towers, regular inspections of cooling systems, and hefty fines for noncompliance. It also called for the creation of an independent oversight body to ensure these measures were enforced. The act passed with overwhelming bipartisan support, signaling a turning point in how the country approached wildfire prevention. Meanwhile, Tesla's fire-resistant tower prototype gained traction, with pilot programs launching in some of California's most vulnerable regions. Communities devastated by the fires began to rebuild, not just physically but emotionally. Grassroots organizations partnered with environmental groups to launch reforestation projects, planting fire-resistant trees and restoring ecosystems. Educational programs taught residents how to create defensible spaces around their homes, a practice that proved vital in minimizing damage during future fire seasons. But the most profound change came in public awareness. The wildfire crisis, catalyzed by Musk's cryptic tweet, became a symbol of systemic failure and the need for greater accountability. It also highlighted the power of individual action, the whistleblowers who risked their careers, the researchers who uncovered the truth, and the communities that refused to be silenced. As the nation reeled from the revelations, the wildfire crisis became more than a story of destruction, it was a reckoning. The media turned its focus to systemic issues that extended beyond telecommunications. Investigative reports revealed similar patterns of negligence in other industries, from aging utility grids to poorly managed urban developments in fire-prone regions. One of the most startling discoveries was a pattern of overlapping risks. High-density telecommunications infrastructure often intersected with outdated power lines and poorly maintained vegetation. This convergence created perfect conditions for wildfires to ignite and spread. Experts called it a systems failure, a term that captured the interconnected vulnerabilities of modern infrastructure. The telecommunications industry, already under intense scrutiny, faced a flood of lawsuits. Victims of the fires, families who had lost homes, livelihoods, and loved ones, banded together in class action suits. Attorneys argued that the negligence of telecom giants and utility companies had directly contributed to the devastation. They presented photos of overgrown vegetation, internal emails dismissing safety upgrades, and maintenance logs showing unresolved issues at ignition points. The companies fought back fiercely, hiring top-tier legal teams to challenge the claims. The real culprit is climate change, one corporate lawyer argued during a high-profile press conference. We are facing unprecedented environmental conditions that no amount of preparation could fully mitigate. The courtroom battles were heated, but the tide of public opinion had already turned. The whistleblowers, once dismissed as alarmists, were now seen as heroes. Their bravery inspired others to come forward in their own industries, exposing hidden risks and systemic failures. A wave of accountability swept the nation, with industries ranging from healthcare to transportation facing renewed scrutiny. In California, the Wildfire Infrastructure Accountability Act began to take effect. Telecommunications and utility companies were required to implement strict safety protocols, from clearing vegetation around towers to upgrading outdated cooling systems. The state allocated significant funding for enforcement, ensuring that oversight bodies had the resources to hold corporations accountable. But the reforms didn't stop there. The federal government, spurred by the crisis, announced a nationwide initiative to address infrastructure vulnerabilities in high-risk areas. The initiative included funding for research into fire-resistant technologies, incentives for companies to innovate, and support for communities rebuilding after disasters. Elon Musk, whose enigmatic tweet had sparked the conversation, became a prominent figure in the movement for change. His proposal for solar-powered, fire-resistant communication towers gained widespread attention, with pilot programs expanding across the western United States. Critics accused Musk of capitalizing on the crisis for publicity, but his supporters saw him as a visionary using his platform to push for meaningful solutions. During a keynote speech at a renewable energy summit, Musk addressed the wildfire crisis directly. "This isn't just about fixing what's broken," he said. "It's about rethinking how we build and maintain the systems we rely on. Innovation isn't just about moving forward, it's about ensuring we don't leave destruction in our wake." Musk's words resonated with audiences, particularly as Tesla's prototypes began to show promising results. Early tests indicated that the fire-resistant towers not only reduced the risk of ignition but also provided critical communication services during emergencies. The success of the pilot programs inspired other companies to explore similar innovations, creating a wave of technological advancements aimed at building resilience. For the communities affected by the fires, the journey to recovery was long and arduous. Families who had lost everything began to rebuild, drawing on support from grassroots organizations, government aid, and neighbors who refused to let them face the challenges alone. Stories of resilience emerged: a retired teacher planting the first tree in a burned-out neighborhood, children organizing fundraisers for displaced families, and entire communities coming together to reforest scorched hillsides. One particularly poignant story came from Ventura County, where a woman named Maria Gonzalez shared how her family had barely escaped the flames that consumed their home. "The fire took so much from us, our house, our memories," she said in a televised interview. "But it didn't take our hope. We're rebuilding stronger and smarter, so this doesn't happen again." Her sentiment was echoed across the state, where the tragedy became a catalyst for transformation. Educational programs on fire prevention and safety became widespread, teaching residents how to create defensible spaces and respond effectively during emergencies. Reforestation efforts prioritized planting fire-resistant vegetation, helping to restore ecosystems and mitigate future risks. As the wildfire crisis continued to reshape public discourse, the focus expanded from immediate recovery to long-term resilience. Communities once devastated by flames began rebuilding with a new vision. Towns like Paradise, which had become synonymous with destruction after past fires, embraced innovative approaches to fire-resistant urban planning. Homes were constructed with flame-retardant materials, landscaping featured native plants less prone to ignition, and community centers doubled as emergency shelters equipped with advanced technology. The state also implemented strict building codes in fire-prone areas, requiring new developments to incorporate fire-resistant designs and materials. These measures, though expensive, were seen as essential investments in the safety and sustainability of vulnerable regions. Insurance companies, long reluctant to cover properties in high-risk areas, began offering incentives for adopting fire-resistant practices, further encouraging widespread adoption. Meanwhile, the ripple effects of the wildfire revelations reached industries beyond telecommunications. Utilities faced increasing pressure to upgrade aging infrastructure, particularly power lines, which had been implicated in previous disasters. The state's largest utility company, Pacific Gas and Electric, PG&E, announced a multi-billion-dollar initiative to bury power lines in high-risk areas, a project that had long been deemed too costly but was now seen as unavoidable. Elon Musk's role in the unfolding narrative remained pivotal. His prototype for a solar-powered, fire-resistant communication tower became a symbol of hope and innovation. Tesla engineers worked tirelessly to refine the design, incorporating feedback from pilot programs and emergency response teams. By the end of the year, the first large-scale installations were underway in some of California's most fire-prone regions. Musk also used the crisis as a platform to advocate for broader systemic changes. At a global climate summit, he delivered a speech that resonated far beyond the wildfire debate. "This isn't just about wildfires," he said. "It's about the unintended consequences of progress. Every system we build has vulnerabilities, and it's our responsibility to address them before they become crises." The speech drew praise and criticism in equal measure. Some hailed Musk as a visionary leader, while others accused him of leveraging the crisis to promote his companies. Regardless of the motivations, Musk's involvement kept the conversation alive and ensured that the lessons of the wildfire crisis were not forgotten. The federal government, inspired by California's reforms, launched a nationwide initiative to address infrastructure vulnerabilities. The program, dubbed the Resilient Infrastructure Act, allocated billions of dollars to upgrade critical systems in disaster-prone areas. It also incentivized private companies to invest in safety innovations, from fire-resistant technologies to early warning systems that could detect risks before they escalated. For the telecommunications industry, the fallout from the wildfire revelations was both a challenge and an opportunity. Companies faced record fines for their negligence, but they also recognized the chance to rebuild trust by taking proactive measures. Several providers announced sweeping overhauls of their infrastructure, pledging to prioritize safety and transparency moving forward. Grassroots movements played a crucial role in sustaining momentum. Activists and community leaders organized campaigns to hold corporations and governments accountable, ensuring that promises of reform translated into tangible action. Social media became a powerful tool for mobilization, with hashtags like #BuildItRight and #NeverAgain rallying support for systemic change. The federal government, inspired by California's reforms, launched a nationwide initiative to address infrastructure vulnerabilities. The program, dubbed the Resilient Infrastructure Act, allocated billions of dollars to upgrade critical systems in disaster-prone areas. It also incentivized private companies to invest in safety innovations, from fire-resistant technologies to early warning systems that could detect risks before they escalated. For the telecommunications industry, the fallout from the wildfire revelations was both a challenge and an opportunity. Companies faced record fines for their negligence, but they also recognized the chance to rebuild trust by taking proactive measures. Several providers announced sweeping overhauls of their infrastructure, pledging to prioritize safety and transparency moving forward. Grassroots movements played a crucial role in sustaining momentum. Activists and community leaders organized campaigns to hold corporations and governments accountable, ensuring that promises of reform translated into tangible action. Social media became a powerful tool for mobilization, with hashtags like #BuildItRight and #NeverAgain rallying support for systemic change. As California began to heal from the devastation, the lessons learned from the wildfire crisis echoed far and wide. Environmental groups gained unprecedented momentum, using the crisis to advocate for urgent action on climate change. Lawmakers across the country faced mounting pressure to pass legislation aimed at reducing carbon emissions, enhancing disaster preparedness, and promoting sustainable infrastructure. The federal government's Resilient Infrastructure Act became a landmark policy, serving as a blueprint for disaster mitigation nationwide. It emphasized collaboration between private industries, local governments, and environmental organizations. Funding was allocated not only for immediate safety upgrades but also for research into innovative technologies that could preempt disasters. This included advanced satellite monitoring systems capable of detecting risks in real time and automated firefighting drones designed to tackle emerging blazes in their infancy. Elon Musk's role in the movement continued to evolve. The success of Tesla's fire-resistant communication towers sparked a new wave of innovation across industries. Companies around the world began adopting similar designs, incorporating renewable energy sources and advanced safety features into their infrastructure. Musk's leadership was not without its critics, but even skeptics acknowledged the impact of his efforts. His ability to mobilize resources and talent to address systemic failures became a case study in how private industry could drive public good. At a global innovation summit, Musk shared his vision for the future: we must build systems that are not only efficient but resilient. The future of humanity depends on our ability to adapt and protect the ecosystems we are part of. For the communities directly affected by the fires, the path to recovery was both painful and inspiring. In the charred remains of towns like Paradise and Thousand Oaks, resilience took many forms. Volunteers helped rebuild homes, local governments offered grants to small businesses, and mental health services provided critical support to families grappling with loss. One particularly moving initiative was a reforestation project led by survivors of the fires. Together, they planted thousands of trees in burned areas, choosing species known for their resistance to flames. Each tree was a symbol of renewal, a testament to the strength and determination of those who refused to let their communities fade into memory. Maria Gonzalez, the Ventura County woman who had lost her home, became a prominent voice for wildfire awareness. Her story, which had touched millions, inspired a documentary that chronicled the struggles and triumphs of families rebuilding their lives. "The fire took everything we had," Maria said in the film's closing moments. "But it also brought us closer together. It reminded us of what really matters: community, courage, and the will to keep going." The crisis also sparked a broader conversation about the unintended consequences of modern technology. As society became increasingly reliant on complex systems, questions arose about their resilience and sustainability. Were power grids designed to withstand the changing climate? Could urban planning account for natural disasters? And what other hidden vulnerabilities might exist in the infrastructure that underpin daily life? These questions spurred a wave of introspection, not just in California but around the globe. Governments, corporations, and citizens alike began to reevaluate their priorities, recognizing that progress without precaution could lead to disaster. The wildfire crisis became a wake-up call, a stark reminder that the cost of inaction was too high to ignore. The legacy of the crisis was one of transformation. It reshaped how infrastructure was designed, how companies were held accountable, and how communities prepared for the challenges of a changing world. The whistleblowers who had risked their careers to expose negligence were hailed as heroes, their actions serving as a rallying cry for transparency and integrity across industries. Elon Musk, whose cryptic tweet had ignited the conversation, remained a polarizing figure. But whether viewed as a visionary or a provocateur, his influence was undeniable. His call to "look closer" had sparked a movement that transcended the wildfire crisis, challenging people to examine the systems they depended on and demand better. As the scars of the fires faded, the lessons they taught endured. California's blackened hillsides began to bloom with new life, a powerful reminder that from the ashes of devastation could rise the seeds of hope and change. And for a nation forever altered by the crisis, the resolve to prevent such a tragedy from happening again became a driving force for a brighter, more resilient future.